Welcome back to the Infested family home. It's lunchtime and everyone's having a bite. Tonight, though, one of them will be bitten. A few feet away in a little rainwater in a discarded toy, hundreds of mosquito larvae have been growing. Now the adults are ready to emerge.
The adult mosquito will push its way out, and you can see them coming out of this pupal shell. It's very dramatic to watch. It's rather like kind of forcing your way out through the zip of a sleeping bag, basically.
Here it is, speeded up 300 times. When it reaches the fresh air, it'll dry off for a while, and then it'll be time for business.
They have these two wings that have a very high wing beat frequency, and that's what gives this high-pitched whining, kind of buzzing sort of sound. If you hear that at night, unfortunately, you're probably going to wake up with a bite somewhere.
Males are vegetarians. This one's female, and her eggs need protein. She wants blood, and she knows where to get it.
The bacteria which cause the smell of cheesy feet actually are known to attract mosquitoes. Sometimes, actually, some sorts of very smelly Limburger cheese, for example, which is a very smelly cheese, can attract mosquitoes. And it's really because the same bacteria in those sorts of cheeses are the same bacteria which we get kind of between our toes and inside our socks.
Limburger cheese it is, then. The mosquito tucks in.
Once the blood is running, what happens is the saliva is continually pumped into the host. And the idea is that thins the blood, it stops it coagulating, it stops it getting too sticky. It's rather like you wouldn't be able to drink a very, very thick milkshake up through a straw. It just kind of gets clogged up.
But it's the saliva that causes the swelling and itchiness. And not content with that, the mozzie has another nasty habit.
She keeps drinking and drinking the blood from the capillary of the person she's feeding on, but she concentrates these red blood cells and she passes all the liquid straight through her. Otherwise, she just wouldn't be able to fly away and she'd probably burst if she drank too much. So it's rather like you or I drinking, 50 or 60 pints of lager, but urinating at the same time, peeing it out so that we can actually take more and more and more.
Luckily for this boy, it's too cold in this country for malaria. Just. And at least he's been bitten only once. Some parts of Britain are less fortunate.
I live in Kent near some marshes, and we get mosquitoes all year round.
We check the bedrooms thoroughly before the children go to bed, behind the curtains, in the lampshades, everywhere we can, really.
You shut the windows, you think you've done it, shut the windows in time, and they're back in, and you find you've missed some.
If you wear shorts, then you're going to get your legs bit. If you're wearing a short-sleeve shirt, you get your arms bit.
You wouldn't imagine something so small could really irritate you so badly.
How many have I killed? Oh, blimey, lost count, millions.
A normal evening at home for Samantha Elliott Hall, a college lecturer living by herself in Stockport. She'll never forget that night.
I've been living in that particular flat for about 18 months, and obviously I'd set up my home there. I was very happy there. I had heard some things for about a week, but I hadn't really put two and two together at all. I just imagined that I'd been hearing things in my sleep, really.
She had been hearing things in her sleep. And two and two were about to be put together in a most terrifying way, because Samantha wasn't alone.
I remember something very sharp cutting into my nose. It was like a razor blade. I reached out with my right arm to put the light on, and then I saw blood everywhere, and it was just like I imagine like my nose bleeding. I didn't really know what was the matter. So I ran to the bathroom, put light on, got some tissues, ran some water, and eventually I think stopped the bleeding. And then I decided that I had to look in the mirror and see exactly what had happened to me. And I saw two teeth marks, I suppose, on the bridge of my nose, and like bruising and some cuts on my face. And I just thought, obviously I've been bitten by something.
Upset and worried, Samantha phoned her best friend.
She was obviously very, very distressed, and I couldn't understand what she was saying to me at first. And all I kept hearing from her was, I've been bitten, I've been bitten.
And she said, do you think it was a moth? I said, no, I don't think so. I think it was something that had teeth, you know.
But what? The girls agreed Samantha should stay in the flat until she knew what had bitten her. An hour later, noises.
I was absolutely terrified. I just did not know what was going to appear from underneath the bed.
Samantha fled to her parents' house, where her dad phoned casualty. She could have caught rat bite fever, which can be fatal, but she was lucky. There was good news from the rat catcher too.
There wasn't a whole colony of rats or anything like that. It was one that had got in somewhere. They didn't know exactly how. Poison was put down, and it was killed.
Nevertheless, Samantha moved home.
I couldn't be happy there again. Couldn't be comfortable and feel secure after what had happened.
The sight of something as filthy and potentially disease-ridden as a rat in your home is enough to make anyone squeamish. But a rat has nothing on the most disgusting thing in the house.
Picture the scene. You've had a meal, you're in your kitchen, you're washing up, you're doing a really good job. What are you actually doing? Is the cloth clean? No, it's absolutely heaving with millions and millions of bacteria, which you are spreading around from A to B.
People use dishcloths for all sorts of gross purposes, even down to cleaning shoes. And the numbers of bacteria that are present can be absolutely staggering. 7 billion or more bacteria present on your average dishcloth.
Special filming techniques can highlight the way the bacteria are spread around.
These are then placed into the washing up bowls or into the sinks. And this actually does a very good job of making this cocktail of bacteria where they can then grow and survive.
In every dishcloth, there'll be dozens of species. Most are harmless, but in less hygienic households, there'll be others that cause stomach upsets and diarrhea.
And what we're doing is we're transferring the bacteria from the cloth onto the glasses and plates.
And pretty much everything else. His hands, the work surfaces. In fact, by the time Dad's finished his washing up, he's successfully coated everything touched by the dishcloth with millions of bacteria.
So this is the irony. We think that we're cleaning up, and in fact, we're not.
Luton in September. For pest controller Matt Wheeler, it's wasp season.
Literally a 2-second job, this, really. Once I've got this gear set up, I'm not even going to bother putting my protective gear on, because I'm going to be well away from it with these lances, and they're only going to swarm up there. They're not going to come down and attack me.
In late summer, wasps are in no mood for this. They're already irritated that the weather's turning cooler, and they're drunk from all the overripe fruit they're eating. Grumpy and intoxicated, the last thing they need is Matt and his insecticide.
See them all piling out now, covered in that dust. Probably a good idea to step back now, guys, because they're not entirely happy. Right, that's me done. It's annoyed them, isn't it? I don't think there'll be any activity here after about 3 hours. That'll all be completely job done. But she needs to keep her window shut.
No wasp stings for Matt this time, and he's off to the next wasp job. Meanwhile, up in Leeds, Kevin Moore is doing the same. After the break, one of them meets his match. Plus Britain's scariest spiders. One that bites people.
Effectively, these things drove us out of the school.
And the most fearsome predator in the home.
They're like the saber-toothed tiger of the spider world.
In Luton, pest controller Matt Wheeler is reminiscing about his first wasp job.
I was on this cherry picker thing, and I must have been up, how many, 3 stories, 4 stories, because it was a big old house. First job. A bit like your first kiss, isn't it? I don't remember that, though.
In his time, Matt's treated over 2,000 wasp nests. But the one he's on his way to now is unusual. It's a whopper.
There've been absolutely hundreds and hundreds of them in here. Well, I've been spraying it because I got worried because of all the...
It's a pretty big nest, isn't it?
It is big. I went away to Lincolnshire for 2 days. When I came back, there were hundreds and hundreds of these things all over the kitchen, and they'd secreted all over the windows. And then I found two up my trouser leg.
Lucky wasps.
So, so I thought I'd better do something about it.
Matt decides he needs backup.
Steve, whereabouts are you at the moment? Could you get out to Stockfold ASAP? Quite a big nest. Yeah. All right then, mate. See you later. Ta-ra, mate.
Meanwhile, Kevin Moore, another pest controller in Leeds, is also reminiscing about his first job.
We were spraying prisoners' cells, you know, murderers and everything. And one Rastafarian guy come up to me and said, "Hey mate, what you in for?" And I said, "Killing cockroaches." He went, "Oh God, I didn't know you could get time for that."
Today, it's wasps all round.
Ah, look at this. One's just flown down from somewhere. But they're mature, so this is not a flight path. So there'll be a nest in your roof space.
Oh no.
Sorry. They're not young.
The roof space is tiny.
Is it?
Absolutely tiny.
But that's the least of his problems. Back in Luton, Matt's not taking any chances.
It's a big nest, and what I don't want to happen is them to all start swarming, them to get out the loft hatch, and just to cause a scene, really. I don't want that to happen, so I'm just going to make sure I've got all my gear on so I've got no chance of getting stung while I'm up there. I've got to be a bit careful, because if you get stung too many times, you start developing an allergic reaction. You know, that's not really good for my job. If I start getting allergic reactions to wasps, I can't earn any money doing them, so I've got to be a bit careful. This is why, I mean, sometimes I go up and do them without all the wasp gear on, but on this one, it's pretty big, and I'm not going to take any risks.
He'll be facing this, a giant of a nest, big enough to hold 3,000 wasps. But at least he can see what he's dealing with. Some creatures, like spiders, are much more secretive. There are 700 species in Britain, about half a dozen in our homes, and they don't all catch prey in webs. Some of them hunt, and there's one that hunts these.
Woodlice are quite good at protecting themselves because they're almost like little armoured tanks running about, and they can roll up in a ball, many species as well, for extra protection. So you have to have quite a specialised animal to be able to feed on.
Unfortunately for this woodlouse, just such an animal is lurking right under its feet, the woodlouse-eating spider.
The woodlouse spider is one of our most distinctive spiders. They're really amazing looking. They're bright, shiny red front of the body with red legs, and then a sort of peanut-shaped abdomen at the back. They get about an inch or so long. And they're the only spider that is capable of eating woodlice. To a woodlouse, they're like the saber-toothed tiger of the spider world.
But the woodlouse doesn't appear to realise and trundles along unconcerned. It's used to relying on the armour plating which has always served it so well, until now.
Woodlice spiders are one of the few real specialist predators, and they are designed to attack woodlice. They're a fearsome predator that will stalk them actively, looking for them as food. And they have these huge jaws at the front, which will sort of wrap around the side of the woodlouse and spike into them and poison them. So it's quite a nasty way to go if you're a woodlouse.
Unlike most spiders, this one has relatively good eyesight. And unlike the woodlouse, it's quick on its feet. But it knows how to play the waiting game and to pick its moment.
And the moment the spider pierces the side of the woodlouse prey, it's not a pretty sight.
The poisoned woodlouse is dragged into the shadows where, out of sight, it will be eaten alive.
I can't stand spiders. I hate them, loathe them.
I can't be anywhere near them.
I couldn't have like black or dark brown or any dark walls because I won't be able to see them, and I have to know if they're there because I have to get them in the vacuum cleaner.
I can deal with very small ones, but there is a certain size and then I run a mile.
I feel sweaty, I feel dizzy, I feel as it's going to overwhelm me and I'm going to almost stop breathing.
If they were a slow-moving creature, I could tolerate with them, I think, a lot better. But they really are just so ugly, I feel.
It's the legs. It's the legs, really. If it didn't have legs, it'd be fine. It didn't have legs. Well, they couldn't be able to move, you know. A legless spider is fine.
There is a spider that's been found in the UK in the last probably 30 or 40 years called Steatoda nobilis. They've caused a bit of a stir because they were found to cause a few bites and that people can have a nasty reaction to the bite. There is one colony on the Isle of Wight.
And it was found in the worst place, a primary school.
Effectively, these things drove us out of the school.
Some people were very scared.
Nothing like it happened before, nothing like it has happened since.
Steatoda nobilis, not your average spider. Yes, it bites people and injects poison. As Helen Blake, a classroom assistant at Bembridge School, discovered.
I was tidying up the classroom ready for the next term, putting all the books and things away. And suddenly I felt something in my hair and twiddled my hair, and then suddenly I felt like a bee sting on my shoulder and turned. When I looked, I realised that I had been bitten and there was a mark. So I was really sure that this spider that I'd actually seen had bitten me. By the evening, it was almost this size, a small saucer size.
And then it dawned on her.
What if one of the spiders had bitten one of the children?
So on the first day of term, Helen told the head.
I was worried, yes, but not panicking. We were a bit wary, so we had to look out for more of the spiders. The children were warned to look out for them, and if they found any, not to touch them.
When we first heard about the spiders, we were really scared. I was scared in case I got bitten by a spider, so I thought I might die.
We were worried about seeing a spider just in case it was a spider that we were looking for, knowing that they were still there.
More spiders were turning up. A specimen was sent to Cambridge University to be identified, and the news wasn't good. Bembridge was infested with a relative of the deadly Black Widow.
Once we realised we had an infestation and that the spiders could be dangerous, then we felt we had no option but to close the school.
Poisonous spiders all everywhere. You know, not used to that sort of thing on the island.
But they'd have to get used to it. When Bembridge reopened 5 days later, the pest controllers who treated the school had bad news. The spiders had colonised the island. They were there to stay.
We're now 5 years on. I think in this 5 years we might have found 4 of those, that kind of spider. So hopefully that is the end of the whole situation.
Matt Wheeler's hoping it'll soon be the end of his giant wasp nest situation.
This is one nest, one queen, and all her workers have built in the period of about 4 or 5 months. What they do, they chew up wood, and they sort of like regurgitate a pulp, and they create the nest layer on layer on layer, and you can see the layer texture there. I mean, it's an incredible piece of construction, really.
A special camera reveals less activity inside the nest than Matt was expecting, which is good news for him and his colleague.
What we're trying to do now is get it down as whole as possible. So we've dug a little hole in it, we're putting some insecticide in there just to knock them out, and we're going to try to take the little beastie off whole. Oh. There we are.
Matt's in luck. His giant nest turns out to be a dud. Most of the wasps have either died or flown off to hibernate until the spring. No stings for Matt today, just a souvenir.
I'm going to take it home and show it to my mum.
For Kevin, it's a different story.
What's actually happening just here is It's quite a lot of wasps in a nest. I've just been stung, actually. There you go. The actual nest, I suspect, is... I can't keep up here too long because I'm getting covered in wasps and getting stung to hell, but basically, the nest is just behind this piece of wood here, which we can't actually get to remove. So, another one there. What they're doing is they're going for the light and me at the same time, but the nest is actually just down there. I've seen the nest, it's just basically made out of chewed timber. I can't actually get into it, so I'll tackle it from the outside. Sorry, I'm just getting stung to hell. Not a very good spot to be in. They do attack the light, but you do get the odd occasional wasp drifting off and stinging moi.
With 6 fresh burning wasp stings on his arms and legs, Kevin still has to tackle the nest from the outside. Next week on Infested, the microbes that join you in the shower.
The sponge may in fact be teeming with germs.
The insects you eat without realizing.
I would have eaten it. There's about a dozen tops.
And the rodents that scurry inside your walls.
I mean, it's horrific. It's like something out of a horror movie.
Welcome back to this ordinary family home, which, like all homes, is infested. It's late and everyone's asleep, but not everything. This house, like a growing number of British homes, has bed bugs. No, not the microscopic things that live in your sheets, they're dust mites. Bed bugs are about the size of a ladybird, but not nearly as nice.
Most of the time, they spend hiding in cracks and crevices, close to places where their main prey, a human, lies. The good news is that they don't need to feed very often. An adult typically will only need 1 blood meal a week, so even in a relatively large infestation, you might be unlucky enough to be only fed on, say, once per night.
You're particularly susceptible if you have antique furniture or buy from car boot sales.
As you snooze in your bed, your CO2 is drifting across the room. This will be sensed by a bug. It will move towards the source of odours, and eventually it will find what it's after, which is an exposed area of skin. They have sharp mouth parts, which are fairly long, on the end of which are saw teeth. As it cuts and pushes and cuts and pushes, it eventually gets the whole of its beak into your skin, and then it will suck the blood for about 1/4 of an hour until it is about 5 times its original size.
Speed it up, you can see it swelling. When it's full, it pulls out and waddles back to base. Unfortunately, though, bed bugs have eyes bigger than their tummies.
Now, it may be that it's eaten so much blood that it's unable to squeeze into the crack from which it came, and so it will poo.
The bed bug sacrifices a portion of its meal and, slimmed down, crawls home, where it will stay. Until next time it becomes peckish.
Well, I used to tease my son. I used to say things to him like, you know, night, night, sleep tight and don't let the bed bugs bite. But I had no idea that these creatures still existed.
I moved into a room in a flat share and to find that it was riddled with bed bugs and they enjoyed making a meal of me.
I had 30 bites from the bugs on each of my arms at any one time.
I thought I was going to die. I thought I had some serious, nasty illness because it just looked revolting. She thought it was chicken pox, but there was no scabby bits. It was just lumps.
The bed bugs were drinking my blood, living off my blood, my son's blood, our dog's blood, the guinea pig's blood, and the house martins that were nesting on the outside of the house.
Eventually, I had to leave the property because they kept reoccurring. I couldn't stay there anymore because it was causing me too much stress.
They've been fumigating the place now for 11 months. They were fumigated again last week. So although the insects have diminished, they have not gone away entirely.
There are 5,000 pest controllers in Britain. One of them is 28-year-old Matt Wheeler. His patch, Bedfordshire.
So what's the best thing about your job, Matt?
Driving around and getting lost. Which I am now. Best thing about the job? Being your own boss is the best thing. I mean, I don't particularly like going around killing things or anything like that, which is what the job's all about, I guess, if you analyse it.
Today, Matt's going to have to be as tactful and sensitive as possible. He's on his way to see a woman who works in a carpet shop. She's got a mouse phobia and possibly a mouse at home.
When I went home last night...
Yeah.
I was standing in the lounge and I could hear something gnawing.
Gnawing? What, in the sort of like in the wall?
In the wall or in the cupboard over the sink. It's not funny. That man's laughing, but it's not funny, right?
In the wall over the sink.
Yeah.
This in the kitchen, the wall over the sink? Yeah, it would be, wouldn't it? You wouldn't have a sink in your lounge, would you?
Well, it's a lounge come kitchen.
I mean, if you're hearing gnawing marks, it implies to me it's slightly bigger than a mouse. Well, it might be. If you're hearing, I mean, in my experiences, if you're hearing gnawing marks and stuff, it might be slightly bigger. But I'll be able to tell from the droppings anyway, so if it's only...
No, it wasn't. It wasn't rat droppings.
Definitely not?
Not in the airing cupboard and under the sink.
Well, that's fine, then. Let me have a look round and...
It wasn't rat droppings, but... Oh.
Don't you worry. Whatever it is, we will sort it out for you. And just remember, he's more scared of you than you are him.
I don't believe it.
I promise you.
At Marion's house, Matt finds everything but rodents. The skeleton of a bird and the beginnings of a wasp's nest. But then...
Ah, bingo. She's right, she has got mice. There's about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10, 12 droppings down here, which kind of like confirm my suspicions earlier that it's only the one mouse that she's got. As to where she's been hearing the noises, and I'm pretty sure the little fella's been going in there. In fact, I'm almost certain. One's better than none for us, and at least it's better than 10 for her.
So Matt heads back to Marion's shop to tell her the good news. But will she see things his way? It doesn't look it, but this is the site of the worst infestation on record in Britain. For decades, it's been home to the world's most destructive animal. Until recently, no one knew they'd moved in and started a family. A big one.
The population built up to around 5 million. We don't know where they came from, we don't know how they got here, and it's a real job to get rid of them.
The squatters are termites, each one no longer than a fingernail, but with a voracious appetite for wood, as the bungalow's owner discovered.
They are fascinating creatures, but obviously one doesn't want them eating one's house.
Aurea, a widow in her 70s, has been coming to Saunton in Devon for 25 years.
It's very beautiful. The beach is wonderful. The views are usually about 15 miles across the dunes. We all love going there, all our family and friends. Have a wonderful time. I always hoped one day we might find a house there.
So in 1994, Aurea bought her dream holiday home.
I could see for myself that a lot of restoration needed doing, which I was happy to do.
But she was in for a nasty shock.
When they took the skirting off, out came all these large white ants.
The ants were sent off to be identified, and the news was worse than anyone could have imagined. Southwest European termites, capable of surviving the UK climate. Britain had its first established termite colony.
Well, I was shattered. I'd heard of termites, but I didn't know anything about them. But I did know that they shouldn't be in England.
Termites are basically tropical animals. The main thing they feed on is wood. Some of the tropical species can destroy a whole timber frame structure in about 3 months.
The termites were treated with insecticide and the house was restored. Aurea moved in, and for 3 years all was quiet. Then one day, a shattering discovery.
My housekeeper there found some dust on a window, and she was a bit worried about this because it didn't look like normal dust.
The termites were back, and this time they were national news.
I was amazed because I didn't think it would be so interesting. And then suddenly you find there was your house and people talking about it and photographing it.
From ITN, News at 10 with Trevor McDonald.
And it was a very weird sensation.
Householders in North Devon are on the alert against one of nature's most powerful forces. Once it strikes, there's little anyone can do. And it's already struck in the resort of Saunton. Thousands of tiny termites have almost eaten their way through a house from the inside out. The fear is that they won't stop at one.
A report issued to householders here in Saunton. They eat away at the inside of a wooden structure.
Saunton will have to be monitored for several years.
The house behind me are infested with termites.
The world's biggest termite extermination program, and you would rightly expect that this place would be guarded 24 hours a day.
The government decided to act, but things were much worse than they seemed. After the break, the news you don't want to hear.
There is a risk that termites have established elsewhere, and as we speak, they are eating someone else's house.
Plus, what's waiting for us on our toothbrushes? And who else is using the kitchen?
Any form of home is infestable. If it provides the food that the animals want, they'll infest it.
It's the weekend at the Infested family home, and unfortunately, Dad's been spending most of the morning in the smallest room in the house.
If one of the family members is ill and has got a food-borne illness and they've got diarrhoea that's associated with that, some of the disease-causing bacteria end up with the faeces in the toilet's flushed, and what happens is that the action of the water when it's flushed sends a great cloud of water droplets up into the air. Now, this is a really good way of spreading bacteria around the bathroom. They can spend several hours, literally, floating before they eventually settle on a range of surfaces. The areas that the family are aware of, for example, the toilet seat, they keep really clean, it's kept dry, and the chances of finding bacteria there are quite low.
But they're quite high on less obvious places, like your toothbrush, which looks like this, magnified over 1,000 times by an electron microscope.
So we've got lots and lots of different types of bacteria which are growing on the toothbrush bristles. That may include some of the disease-causing bacteria, for example, from an episode of diarrhoea.
On one bristle, there could be tens of thousands of bacteria, and on your toothbrush head, up to 100 million.
One of the things we do at least once every day is brush our teeth. You're in the bathroom, you pick up your brush. Are you absolutely sure that that brush is clean? What's happened to it in the time since you last used it? Has it perhaps acquired some other organisms that you're unaware of?
In Devon, things were more serious than anyone realised, and a government expert was about to raise the stakes.
The first I heard of this was watching the news one night when I suddenly discovered that termites had been found in a building down in Devon. On my first trip down, we thought initially we were dealing with just a localised infestation in one of the buildings.
But it was far worse than that.
The infested area was extremely intense, literally heaving with termites. The wall frames looked absolutely fine, but they were just like cardboard. You could just break them apart with your hands.
The building appeared intact, but it was a shell, devoured from the inside.
We estimated that there was at least 5 or 6 million termites through that area. And of course, the buildings represented just the tip of the iceberg.
2,500 square metres of land were cordoned off. 29 houses were quarantined.
When I first heard the bad news, I initially felt like crying, and then I thought that's ridiculous, so I just laughed instead, just to be positive.
We don't know for sure how the termites came here, and we'll probably never know. But if we presume that they came in on a very small piece of timber accidentally decades ago, they then spread to an area the size of a football pitch.
Dr. Verkerk started a £250,000 12-year programme to poison the termites, and so far, so good.
Within a few months, we saw a total collapse of termite numbers, and during 2000, we've seen very, very few termites.
Aurea's been allowed back, but the value of her £300,000 house has plummeted, and she dreads a return of the termites.
When the final treatment finishes in 10 years' time, if they are still there, we shall have to keep an eye on the house and eventually rebuild.
But there's a far more frightening problem.
Because wood has already been taken out of the property before the start of the programme, there is a chance that termites were moved unwittingly to other areas, and infestations have already begun that we don't know about yet.
And there's nothing anyone can do about it. It took 30 years to discover that Aurea's bungalow was infested. Only time will tell whether there are more terrible secrets in the beams of more houses in Saunton or anywhere else in the country. Luton, and back at Marion's carpet shop, Matt breaks the news.
We found some drop-ins. Yeah, they're only about 12 or 13 drop-ins I found, which implies to me there's only the one mouse up there. So you've got no worries there. I've thoroughly baited up the loft for you, and we'll come back in 4 or 5 days' time and check things over for you. OK, yeah. So you've got no worries there.
Yeah, but you say you got no
I know what you're saying.
You know what?
Yeah, I know what you mean. It might be an idea to get, as you go up in the loft.
I won't go in the loft.
The noises you're hearing is him in the cavity wall. But, you know, he's in the cavity wall there, and that's where he'll stay. He's not going to come out. He's not going to come out at all.
Well, he will if he gnaws his way out, won't he?
But he won't.
He will.
He won't.
Is Marion likely to see it, Matt?
No, very unlikely to see it. I mean, if you see him, give me a call direct and we'll come straight out for you.
An offer Matt soon regrets.
Where did you hear it?
In the vent. But don't poke it about while I'm in.
No, I'm not going to touch it. Have you had a look at any of the boxes?
You must be joking.
Good.
I don't want to put the extractor fan and the mouse jumps out at the top, you know.
No, exactly.
I'll sit down there and... Yeah, I'll put my shoes on, I'll sit down here, and if anything happens, I can jump out the door.
OK.
Matt sets to work laying more bait. But later today, Marion will run out of bravery. She lives in one of 800,000 British homes shared by mice. And here's another of them. It's the middle of the night and Mum's restless. She gets up for a drink of water. Down in the kitchen, though, she'll have company.
They'll live anywhere. I doubt that there's a home or a place in the United Kingdom that they can't actually inhabit.
They can get in through the tiniest of gaps.
They may look quite large and furry, but in fact, if you can push your pencil into a hole, then mice can get through it. The limitation for the hole they can get through basically is the size of their skull, and their skull, as you can see, is extremely small and narrow. Mice have very high reproductive rates. That's one of the problems that we have with them. You can get anything between 500 and 1,000 mice out of a single pair from the beginning of the year. House mice are also remarkable athletes. We tend to think of them as being on the floor, but the majority of the time is probably spent in our cavity walls, going up our electrical ducting, and climbing around the house as well as running around our floors. You don't see it, but one of the more unpleasant characteristics that house mice have is that they are constantly marking their territories with urine.
You can see it under ultraviolet light, though, and there's a lot more than you'd think.
They'll feed from up to 30 different spots in one night.